Yeah, you mentioned that no one cares what happens to you or what you've been through, that no one is coming to save you. It's that sort of accountability you start taking in your life, right?
Yeah, and if you don't have the accountability, someone's going to make you accountable, and you don't want reality to make you accountable. I mean, it will. You want to take the accountability on yourself because when an outside force has to step in and do it, you're gonna have to not just become accountable for what is going on now. You're gonna have to pay taxes, as I call it, for everything you've done before, and or taxes or interest, however you want to look at it. You're gonna have to pay more and still lose just as much time and maybe do more damage. It's no good. So the quicker you can get in front of your habits and your issues and your problems, then the better off you'll be because you're bringing the fight to your issues as opposed to having your issues bring the fight to you, and that is key. I think if there's one key idea that can keep someone out of trouble is the idea of bringing their fight to, or rather bringing your fight to the world, bringing the not letting uh, something go wrong before you try to get things right.
Hello, Ed. Welcome to the podcast, man. Pleasure having you.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here. Excited to hear about what you guys are doing and trying to create, man. That's really I like hearing that kind of stuff. That lets me know that there are people in the world who are not conforming to the standard path, the recommended path.
Thank you, man. Glad to hear that. And I love your story. I've been researching you for quite a while now. And you mentioned that you've lived four different lives and that from each of those lives, you've had this major lesson. So, what I want to do with you today, if it's okay with you, is sort of go through each section of your life and break down that major lesson.
Oh yeah, no problem, man, for sure.
So let's start with Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, growing up in the projects, and you learned to never underestimate the power of being likable and controlling your emotions. Why is that?
Because when people like you, they go out of your way to help you, and probably more importantly, they don't want to harm you, and that makes your life a lot less stressful. You don't incur in that environment. I'm already dealing with a lot of environmental stress to begin with. So the question is, how do I reduce that? How do I get some control back? And part of that is why I figure out how to make people like me and be around me. Yeah, you want to do it. You can't do it in a weak way. You can't be supplicating, but you need to be interesting. You need to be stand out, but you don't want to get sucked in. And there are ways to do that. I mean, you still suffer some penalties for not falling completely into the crowd around you, but it's still useful, and it just serves you well for the rest of your life as you figure out different, or rather not figure out, but as you move into different arenas, the rules, because they're still people and people are still people, and when people like someone, they have a certain response to them that's more favorable. So that is really where that comes from is having to use it real time in a survival environment. And as I get older, it turns into something really interesting and something really useful to to apply into many other fields, many other uh, endeavors. And the discipline part, I mean, I'm really fortunate that I got a lot of anti goals growing up. I got to see a lot of people who were going down paths that I wasn't interested in going down. And that makes it easier for me to go, okay, I know what they're doing, and I'm not going to do that. And it just so happens that a lot of that leans into discipline, or to say it differently, a lot of problems in people's lives can be summed up to not taking control and not staying focused on their life, not having something to discipline them about. And once I realized that, I mean, it wasn't as crystal clear, the realization, as I'm expressing it now, but I had an inkling of it then. And so I'm able to use it and go, okay, let's let's have something to direct my energy to. Let's have some way to develop and build me. That changes my life entirely. Or at the very least, it starts it on a path of change. Probably keeps me out of trouble still, because a lot of growing up in that environment is not falling into different traps. If you can prevent yourself from falling into different traps, you've got a pretty good chance of making it out. At the at the very least, yeah, I mean, you won't be in a position where it's impossible to, like the big problems, you don't get anyone pregnant, you don't break the law, um, stuff like that. Those two big things, if you don't do those two things, you're free to kind of build yourself up whenever you're ready to, or there's nothing preventing you. Maybe if you never make it, that's cool, but you'll always be in a position to.
So you're in this environment. You are in the projects. Essentially, how is it looking like? And when did you realize that you needed to discipline yourself, and you sort of had a bunch of anti heroes or anti idols that you saw around yourself? I don't understand how you, being so young, could have understood something so complex. Could you dive a little bit deeper on that?
Well, I don't understand the mechanics exactly. Well, all I know is I have a simplified model through my simplified ability to understand my reality. I go, this is not what I enjoy. This is not something I aspire to be. Let me do something different. And the older I got, the more I realized what that would look like and how that would look, right? So then it's as simple as is following, well, because I talk about it now and it sounds complicated, right? Or it has the potential to sound complicated, but it's really simple. That's not enjoyable. Let's not do that. This and then certain things over here that were enjoyable. I mean, you get lucky in what you like to do, where you find enjoyment. Those things are enjoyable. So by virtue of just not doing stuff that's going to ruin you, you end up making pretty big strides in your life. I think you end up just you just don't go down the path of everyone around you. I mean, if I could give anyone a big lesson about overcoming the environment, just do what everyone else is not doing. Really develop the this. Once you recognize that it's not going to lead anywhere, and it's not because you got to have some sense of the future. But once you recognize that it's not going to get you any closer to what you're trying to do, you got to stay away from it. You got to do something else. You got to point your head in a different direction.
So let's talk about now finding that second life. When did you realize that, okay, this is the second step in my life, and what did you learn then?
The second step, I guess, if because I don't, it's funny. A lot of times I don't remember the article or how I wrote it. I just know that that was my thought process at the time. So then I can filter everything through that. But I think I found that second life.
You mentioned that it was learning how bad that first life was.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of that is you grow up and you start to become aware of how different things were for you. Experiences I thought that everyone else around me shared. Okay, I'm the minority in this one. No one else. There's no one to relate to. Uh, there's nothing like that. I think certain things are normal and they're not normal. But as I get to a different uh environment to see this, then I have to deal with my reactions and responses to it, right? Because I've said one of the worst days in every poor kid's life is when they realize that they're poor, and that's okay. That's a thing you have to cope with. That's the thing you have to deal with. you have to learn that not everyone is going to have everything, and you happen to be one of those people that don't have everything. Now, what you do about it is a different story, but that realization is hard. And then you go, all right, well, how do I get these things? I want a different life. I want something better. Well, now we're out of the avoidance stage because that just keeps you from losing the game. Now my mind starts thinking about how do I win? How do I take advantage of things around me? How do I make myself better? There's still going to be a bunch of things I have to cope with emotionally from prior experiences, but but now I'm actively pursuing and trying to make myself a little better, and that's a big difference moving into the second phase.
Yeah, you mentioned that no one cares what happens to you or what you've been through, that no one is coming to save you. It's that sort of accountability you start taking in your life, right?
Yeah, and if you don't have the accountability, someone's going to make you accountable, and you don't want reality to make you accountable. I mean, it will. You want to take the accountability on yourself because when an outside force has to step in and do it, you're gonna have to not just become accountable for what is going on now. You're gonna have to pay taxes, as I call it, for everything you've done before, and or taxes or interest, however you want to look at it. You're gonna have to pay more and still lose just as much time and maybe do more damage. It's no good. So the quicker you can get in front of your habits and your issues and your problems, then the better off you'll be because you're bringing the fight to your issues as opposed to having your issues bring the fight to you, and that is key. I think if there's one key idea that can keep someone out of trouble is the idea of bringing their fight to, or rather bringing your fight to the world, bringing not letting uh, something go wrong before you try to get things right.
And this accountability for you, because let me recap. You started in the projects, then you moved to a different high school. You saw that people had different things, and you realized that you were poor then. But then you actually did go to college and had a little bit of trouble with drinking with a girlfriend. Would you mind expanding on that? And then when you finally started having that accountability that we mentioned now?
Uh, the you get out and you're free and you have a different um you have what's the word? You don't have as many restraints on you, and if you haven't been prepared for that, it's going to show. It's just like anything, you learn and practice and develop in a protected environment, whatever that environment is for whatever that skill. But it's like a simulation. It's training. It's not real life yet. And then you go and you encounter real life, and then you've got a much bigger problem now because you can do more, but you can lose more, and you can affect the world. And but if you don't have control over how you're affecting the world, then you're going to do some damage. And so the key is to have accountability for your actions. And that accountability, everyone just says accountability, but like it's easy to understand what that is. But I never assume, especially the more popular word gets, I never assume that everyone just knows what it is. I think it's important to define this as simply as possible. Accountability is just is just the acceptance that what you do or don't do, what you don't get, is all dependent on your actions and no one else's. One could also call this taking responsibility, but I feel like that's inserting another word of equal complexity to explain the idea. All right, it's not. It's just using a synonym. It's not breaking things down. So when I say, I aim to be accountable, I'm not blaming anything for my problems. I'm looking at what I could have done to make them not occur or handle them better, avoid them benefit. Okay, so that instead of now that we have the idea down of like exactly what accountability is, then then it's easy. It kind of walks us into the rest of the idea. Okay, I want to be accountable for my life. I want to get these things done. It's easy for me to go, okay, I grew up poor, disenfranchised, and I didn't have any help. It's easy to do that. What's way harder is to go, all right, this happened, but now it's up to me to make a difference. Now it's up to me to do something different.
And when did you realize that, okay, now it's up to me to do something different? Because you started boxing at my age right now at 22, which I find crazy with given everything that you've accomplished in that area, at least.
I couldn't remember the exact. I mean, there are times I remember making singular large changes that had an influence on my life, but in terms of like a mindset shift, exactly, those are rare. I remember the actions I took. Like 22, starting to box. That's a pretty big deal, and why I did it is a big deal, right? That to me that signifies taking responsibility. When I stopped drinking, that's probably the biggest issue area where I'm like, wow, I'm going to be accountable for everything that occurs on now. No more blaming the booze, none of that. Let's be accountable to that. So I do that. All of these things, end up working together to make me accountable for my life, my entire life, and that's the goal, to have complete control, or to have as much control as I can. You have to realize, you can't control everything, but you want as much control as you can have.
And know how to differentiate like what's within your control and what's not.
Absolutely. A lot of frustration stems from confusing that.
In in your career in boxing, like you started at 22, and how did you already know that this was something that you wanted to pursue for so long and so seriously?
Oh, I didn't know. I knew that I was going. I know I wasn't going to quit. If I stopped, it was going to be because I got injured, or because someone said, who was in the game, like, "Yo, you're not learning this. You're not getting this. Go do something else." So those yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I went in thinking I would. I mean, obviously, I wanted to do as best as I could, or maybe not. Obviously, I wanted to do as best as I could, but I didn't have a particular long term play. It was more like, let's see how this goes, how much better I can get, what can I learn, what can I pick up, and that's where how that or that's probably part of the reason why I had such a long career, is that I'm always developing and working on myself.
And you're boxing at the same time that you're going to school and you're in the army, right?
Well, not for the first half of my career, and not when I'm an amateur. That's when I'm a professional. Uh, my amateur career, I mean, I'm more or less focused on boxing. I had like a few rinky dink jobs here, but nothing serious. It wasn't until I was a pro, yeah. Then I'm in school at the same time. Then I'm in the army at the same time as while I'm fighting. And those three things at the same time were hard to do. It was a lot of work.
And how did you manage with these three things?
Oh, I wonder that all the time. So sometimes I think back, and um, I didn't. I have to be honest with myself. I mean, I wasn't as good of a student or as good of a fighter as I could have been, but I'm preparing for what can happen in the future, and I'm so happy I did now, looking back, because it set up everything in my life. But that's not a guarantee whatsoever. Like that it turns out well. I put a lot of work. I mean, a lot into everything I was doing. I was exhausted all the time. It was difficult, But you do it, and you do it because you got to do it. You have to make the transformation.
Yeah, you have this tweets where you mentioned that you need to work harder than a crackhead.
Yeah, pretty much.
And when is this fourth life? Why did you decide to leave boxing and now dedicate yourself to writing, to becoming an author, public speaking,
Uh
and all
so
that?
so this is this question is multivariate. There's no single thing. It's like everything I do. I go and I look at it at each of the major factors, weigh them out, pro and con, whatever, right? So here's the thing people don't understand about fighting. You don't make a lot of money boxing. It's just not the thing you do to get paid. You do a lot of other things to get paid. Fighting ain't one of them. And I was fortunate. I had a more lucrative than average, I think, boxing career for my pedigree and how I came up. But I'm fortunate in that I really figured out writing, like writing and building up what I do, and I make a great living, and I can travel, and I have a lot more freedom, and I'm a lot healthier. I don't I never minded getting injured. None of that. I don't think you can worry about that and be a good fighter. What what I do now though is because I'm doing so much more and enjoying so many other aspects of my life. Fighting would take so much because I know what it takes to be good. Now I don't need to do it. I can in a month make quite a bit more from the work I'm doing, have a bigger outreach and not get hurt if I don't have to get hurt. I don't mind getting hurt. I don't seek it out though. I'm not a masochist, but that's part it's part of why more or less I stopped fighting is that I can just do other things at a very high level, and a lot of fighters don't have that option. I recognize that. Well, I recognize my decision looks strange, but that lets me know that a lot of people don't understand fighting, and they don't understand how much money you can make online if you really are trying to build something and grow a brand and group.
And how did you learn about building these businesses online that you now have? What did you do to gain this knowledge while you were still? Was this while you were still a pro boxer, or something you learned right after?
No, you're picking up all of these things while you're doing one thing or the other. Okay, so like I'm figuring out how to make and build customers in the real world, right? Because I was tutoring for a little while, so I figured that out. And then my writing, I've been writing forever, and I grow and grow and grow and improve my writing, and then I'm just learning different things as I interact with different people. It's a work in progress. I'm always building up knowledge and skills, right? That's the thing, and I'm applying it to the writing. And but the fundamental idea is if you get an audience, you're going to be okay, right? How you get that audience matters a little, but what matters more is that you get an audience. And that's why I put so much into my writing because it gives me an audience. It makes it possible for me to make a living doing this. So it's a good time, pretty much. But to call myself a business guy online, it's probably more accurate to say I know enough about the principles of online business that they don't work against me, and I'm able to use them to grow my website and my following.
And I've also seen you talk about the red pill and relationships. Could you expand on that? What exactly the taking this red pill means?
It's just when you understand the reality of a situation, when you understand, and it's in particular about dating. It's just understanding the truth about the socio-sexual dynamics between men and women, and then making sure you're in a position to take advantage of them, or rather, not have them be taken or not be taken advantage of by them. And that's unpopular to talk about today, but it's important. It's important that guys know these things and they understand these things and are able to use them and to navigate them to their advantage. Because the last thing we don't want guys to be completely, destroyed and taken out of the dating market. We don't want them disincentivized because we need men and women to work together. If they don't work together, the human race is in bad shape.
When did you find this information about relationships, and when did you really start researching this?
Oh, it's probably sometime. I think I was like 23 or 24. I can't remember the exact the day or anything like that, or the year, but it's just been a growing interest of mine because people it's important that people work together. If people don't work together, we're in bad shape. Right? People have to work together. That's so important. So if I can get people to work together, if we can make that happen, then we have a pretty good chance of making a lot of other things happen in the world. But right now, when the function that reproduces humans and the whole, I guess, structure around it is in shambles, then we have a problem. I think it's a big problem. I think if we don't do anything about it, then we're gonna fall off. But that's it's that the way we relate to one another has always interested me. It just so happens that someone put a name. I will call it the red pill, and put a bunch of information behind it for people to work with and use.
And how's that different from what, let's say, the media or Hollywood portrays dating?
I would say the biggest difference is the mainstream portrayal removes almost all accountability from women, and that's a big deal because one, it's inaccurate. Two, you can't solve a problem if you don't recognize a problem. Okay, no matter how unsexy it is to recognize a problem for what it is, if you don't recognize it for what it is, you can't do anything about it. All right. So when we remove all culpability from women, then we put ourselves into a precarious position where we can't talk about any issues that come up if they have anything to do with women. It's a bad thing. You can't do it. You're not allowed. Okay. So that's the big problem with the media right now. And the other issue too, and this is a really significant one, is that the media is doing a great job at portraying women as still being behind men. And the reality is, in every measure of wellness, with one notable exception, women are ahead. They they are completely ahead, and actually, from a really technical standpoint, have more rights than men because a man can't decide to abort a fetus, for example. Only a woman can. So they tell us they have fewer rights, but women have more rights. Women make more, graduate from college and high school more, more employed, more likely to get jobs, and more, this is and on top of that, on negative societal metrics, women lag, which are good. Women don't commit suicide. Women are homeless. Women aren't in prison as often. There's you can't discuss anything wrong with this situation because, well, you'll be labeled misogynistic. There's not a it's not a balanced take, and also you can't come to men's aid because we're so busy fighting the war that women have already won.
So why do you think that is so prevalent that whenever we talk about topics like this, we get canceled? Or why do you think it's so hard for us just to speak about a problem?
Money. I think it all comes back to money. Women spend a lot of money, and so and people cater to them, and they cater to who spends money because when you get in areas where women don't spend money, some of these things that are notable disappear. But when it comes to movies, entertainment that a lot of people consume, so it's a mass. tool of dissemination, then you get that issue. You get the towing the line, the plan to the message of the masses, and that's not good. I think that's very bad. I think that's very damaging potentially.
So, what do you think the shift from women being lagging behind men to women actually having more rights, as you said, happened? When do you think the shift happened?
It's gradual, but no clue. Um, some things had before I was born, some things after. Um, something, yeah. I mean, it's just a combination because remember, there's not one thing. A lot of it, they're emergent properties. They're individual things that come together and produce brand new behaviors. That's pretty much the best way to describe it. And it's just been on and on, and then the internet comes, and the internet has been an accelerant on everything because of the speed and reach. So I don't know if anyone can pinpoint any one time, but there are multiple factors that come together and make this a thing.
And what's the biggest problem behind this thing, do you think?
The bigger it makes it hard. It makes relationships between men and women tenuous. That's all. In developed nations, for example, we're below replacement. I mean, how you feel about it is how you feel about it. I'm not convinced it's a good or bad thing yet. I'd just like to look at the numbers, but let's look at here. People are getting married less and having fewer kids. If that continues in mass, then yes, that's a bad thing regardless. At least for humanity. But here we are.
And right now with COVID, we've definitely seen an increment in at least males having less sex and people just having less relationships because of the social distancing. So, how do you think this is gonna affect what you said?
Um, well, one of the cool things about everything that's happened with COVID and social distancing is that it's awakened people to how much they need one another. Let's see where that goes. Maybe it goes nowhere. Maybe it makes a big difference, but people now know that they need one another, and I think that's really important.
And how has this view affected your personal relationships with your partners?
Oh, my relationship's fine. I've been with my girlfriend for 9 years almost, man. I'm I'm happy. You don't need they can't get me. I'm because I recognize what's out there, and I'm not trying to go back to anything even remotely like that. I don't want to go and deal with that. I don't want to head back to um the old life, man. I don't, like I couldn't imagine being single right now, for example. I mean, you young guys, you got a lot of. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's nice girls everywhere, I'm sure, but like you guys got a lot to deal with. A lot of things that I don't want to ever deal with. you know.
So, from all these four lives that you've lived, everything that you've gone through, growing up in the projects, becoming a professional boxer, doing all these amazing things, what do you think is the one piece of advice that you would give someone, let's say a young male like me?
Work on just work on developing yourself, man. Like that's all you can do. You can't do anything else. If you do that, if you work on developing who you are and what you're trying to be, then you're gonna put yourself in a position to have options. You'll put yourself in a position to where you don't to where you will be able to demand the highest quality. May and you'll be happy because a lot of issues. I mean, look, I look at both. Um, well, forget the dating aspect. Let's just talk overall. Yeah, just develop yourself into the highest possible guy you can be because you don't get any time back. I'm lucky. I woke up and started using my time constructively when I was 28. But that's still 10 years after I was 18. I wasted. Okay, a lot of guys don't wake up at their 28. Right, so if you're already starting a game like this at 22, who knows where you'll be by the time you're my age, but you'll be further along with more skills and more connections. Realistically, unless you do something crazy.
So really utilizing your time efficiently and growing yourself basically.
Yes, absolutely.
And is there anything that you want to see differently in the world as it is today?
Oh, tons of things, but I never worry about like how what I want or how I feel. Like that's an interesting question, but my brain just never goes there. I just will figure out how to deal and navigate. And any change that I want to put out to the world, I try to do that and hope that it catches on. That's one of the reasons why I carry myself so. I try to carry myself so well online. I try to be polite. And I try to make sure people can have no problem reaching out to me because we need examples of just good, solid behavior. That's what we need. We don't need any more outrage. There's enough outrage in the world right now. I mean, we definitely don't need that. So we need something better than outrage. Something, and if you can give people that, I mean, I think just trying to make the world a better place is a really noble goal. At the very least, if you can't do that, uh, don't mess anything up, and that's really important. Like, don't mess anything up.
For sure. And thank you for your time. Ed. Is there anything you want to end with, and how can people reach you online?
Well, nothing I want to end, but it's just been a great combo. But you can reach me online. I'm Ed Latimore everywhere. I'm Ed Latimore on Twitter, Ed Latimore on Instagram, Ed Latimore on Facebook. My website is edlatimore.com. So yeah, yeah. If you want to come and link up and find me up, I would love just send me a conversation, send me a message, and we can have a great combo about something.